everyone. Let me start by welcoming you all who have joined. Thank you so much. Basically, as Visionary Readers Book Club, our vision is to see each and every home in Africa with a bookshelf. And with that being said, we also have a mission to basically promote the reading culture within the African continent and beyond. Our purpose is to help each other to read more and better. And for these reviews, we meet each and every last Sunday of the month to review different books. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's allow the first speaker, Dr. McLean Sibanda, to do his review. Over to you, Doc. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone, and good evening. So this evening, I'm reviewing Dr. Sibongiseni's book. It's quite difficult to actually see with the filters in the background here, but it's his first book, The Speech Checklist, the 5 key components of an impactful and memorable speech by Dr. Sibongiseni Mgolozeli. The book itself focuses on key components of an impactful and memorable speech. He identifies 5 key elements or 5 components, and he lists them as being rhetoric, that's the first one, and then he goes on to the ABC of public speaking, figure of speech, what he calls haka, which is humor, acronyms, codes, and abbreviations, and then he finishes off with rehearsals. And in essence, I think what he says is that the rehearsals is really what separates the professionals from the amateurs. The book is divided up into 3 parts. Part 1 deals with his story and provides deep insights into the man behind the book. In that particular part 1, he makes himself vulnerable and discloses very personal information and background, including his battle with self-confidence, bullying, suicide attempts, and how he made a decision to turn his life around and be somebody. And in his own words, I quote, to turn everything I touch into gold and every person I encounter into the best version of themselves, close quote. In the quest to fulfill his mission, Dr. Mgolozeli took on to learning to be a public speaker, and over a period of 4 years, once joining Toastmasters International, he shares incredible stories, insights, and tools to help readers improve their self-confidence and speeches, and also impact lives through speeches. In the second part of the book, he goes on to meticulously and eloquently unpack the 5 components of a memorable and impactful speech. He weaves in wisdom and advice from the numerous books he has read with his own personal experiences to deliver what is an absolutely riveting manual on public speaking. He simplifies and explains, for example, what makes up rhetoric, being ethos, pathos, and logos, and highlights the power of using silence as an important part of making an impact. And in this particular example, he uses someone like Vusi Chembegwayo, and it's almost like dropping a mic and then silence. In explaining logos, I'm reminded of Professor Bonang Mohale and how he's able to use numbers, statistics to grab the attention of the audience and make a point. What I take away from the book, is many things, but one is that public speaking requires intentionality and discipline, and one has to know what challenges the audience wants to be assisted with and what would be of interest to them, and find a way of communicating how they could solve those challenges and leave them with a couple of action points to work on after the speeches are done. Another thing that I take away from the book is the importance of preparation and indeed finding stories you can use to make a lasting impression with your audience and keep their attention for longer. The one section that I have personally grappled with in the past and found the book very useful in assisting me think through my future speeches is the use of acronyms and abbreviations and codes, which in essence is an art. And the book attests to the strong discipline that is required to deliver effective and memorable speeches. Sibongiseni uses relatable examples of speeches that have that have used the tools and techniques that he deals with in this book. One thing that is clear is that the book is not to be read just once, but is a companion to anyone that is in leadership, aspires to inspire others, requires structure to putting together a talk or speech, and is eager to learn new techniques or be reminded of effective ways of delivering a speech. Lastly, it is evident from the book that to give effective speeches, one has to build their vocabulary. And Sibongiseni advocates reading as a way of doing so, and in addition to giving enough speeches. Practice makes perfect, highly recommended to anyone that wants to be an effective communicator. And so this is a book that I would really recommend people to purchase and also to give away as gifts to others. Thank you very much.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Doc. So we'll have Anna Mvubu as the next speaker to do her review. Anna, can you confirm, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you, Doctor, and participants.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think your time starts now. You have 3 to 5 minutes to do your review. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I am reviewing a book written by Dr. Sibongiseni Mgolozeli, a speech checklist, 5 key components of an impactful and memorable speech. This book, I have read it once, and I'm going to read it again and again. Yesterday, I was repeating another chapter, and it consists of 3 parts. Part 1 is about the author, where he tells us about his background, what kind of a person he is, and what kind of a person he was. And part 2, that's when he talks about different issues about speech, and part 3, he talks about humor, acronyms, codes, and abbreviation, and 5 key tips and tricks to help you overcome the fear of public speaking. And it has about 5 chapters. And chapter 5, it talks about the rehearsal, whereas chapter 4 talks about what I have already mentioned as humor, acronym, codes, abbreviation, and 5 key tips and tricks to help you overcome the fear. And chapter 3 talks about the figures of speech. Chapter 3 as well talks about the power of reading. And the part that I am going to review today, it's on page 160. It is 7 reasons why you must teach kids to read. I read this part personally, and I asked my kid to also read it because it is important. And I want to encourage the readers to read it and read it again, because it's more about what is practically happening to us. On the first part of it, where it talks about the 7 reasons why you must teach kids to read, it's more related to the vision of this club that we are in, where we need to have bookshelves in all African homes. The first part, which is important, is about having the rich vocabulary and improving memory. Dr. Sibo explains very well the power of reading, which helps you to engage with people on a daily basis. And the earlier and wider you read as a person, you get more words and you get more exposure. The other part, he talks about the critical thinking and stronger analytical skills, which are very important in our daily lives. Sometimes we do use some words without even applying critical thinking. So he takes us back to say it is important for us to apply our mind. And also when we read, we need to also remember the characters, the background of what we have read. The other part, he talks about the power of reading, as reading makes us to be better conversationalists. Today, I'm able to present myself here because I was able to take time and read a book and read books. And these books are helping me to have conversations with people. The other part that he also talks about, which I'm not going to read all of them, but the part where he talks about better writing and reading skills. So when you read, you will achieve better writing and reading skills. So in his writing, he was just being practical. He was giving also examples of the things that he has done practically. Somewhere he has put the pictures of what he has experienced, which I found it very interesting. Particularly, Dr. Sibo was just honest in most cases, and I realized that some of the things that he was talking about is what I am actually seeing. So there is part where he talks about the ABC of speech, and it's an acronym, A standing for attitude, B for body language, and congruency as C. So that we find it in page 98. So what I loved about that is when he told us about a story of the power of self-discipline, where he went to Tokyo to present himself. And Dr. Sibo, this is very challenging for all of us. I previously had a challenge of flying all over the country, but after I read your book, now I can go all over. I have started already with my trips. It is because I got courage from your book. The other part is where he was mentoring Tonya about our body language. Thank you so much. I see my time is up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna, so much for that review. Anna and the previous speaker for the great reviews. Let's move on to the third speaker now. We'll call Anna Costa on stage. I think your time starts now. You have 3 to 5 minutes. Good luck.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Sorry for the background. I'm not very tech savvy, so I haven't managed to put the background on. But this evening, I'm doing the speech checklist by Dr. 5 Key Components of an Impactful and Memorable Speech. Whether we realize it or not, we all have our self-limiting beliefs. The things we hold dearest to our hearts, our wildest dreams, our most passionate drives, we squash them into small clusters of idealistic and foolish dreams. This we do either because we don't believe in ourselves, or we feel we aren't worthy of owning who we are, and we let others belittle our existence. I often think of the phrase, if you want to make God laugh, then tell him your plans. And looking back on my life and the sequence of events, this proverb reinforced itself more and more. Now, the speech checklist is a book of many facets. It's got many events. It's all about personal development. It takes you on a journey. You as a reader go on a self-discovery. And one can't help but resonate with the rawness and the transparency of the truth, which Dr. Sibo's life unfolds as we read. And I think this resonates with all the readers. The author writes about becoming aware that rejection, such as his Fulbright interview right in the beginning of the book, is a result of God's redirection. And this is something that we all need to ponder on. We get so lost in everyday's life and chasing after success. This is something else that Dr. Sibo writes about later in the book. We chase success. We want the world to hear us, to know us, to believe in us, that we sometimes forget what is actually necessary for us and what is good for us and what we truly want. That is why we must ask ourselves, when faced with obstacles and when there's just downright rejection at every turn in our lives, we must ask, what is the lesson that is being taught here? What is it that I can learn from this? Instead of falling victim to woe is me, what have I done wrong? This totally derails us and limits our growth even further. So what has speech making got to do with all of this? Well, Dr. Sibo makes it very clear, everything. Here I am talking in front of you. I'm doing a speech. It's as good as a speech, although it's not a Toastmaster speech. At work, we do our presentations, be it a budget presentation or a job review. At school, we do our oral presentations. So everything goes hand in hand with our speech and with how we present ourselves and our body language. So although we've heard it before, the book reiterates the importance of being mindful of first impressions. Within 30 seconds, you can either lose your audience or you can win your audience right at the beginning and right at the end of your speech. So everything from A to Z, there is a link, these are facets, and we have to be mindful and alert at all times. It's imperative that we master speech making and storytelling. And that's another point which is driven home. We need to practice the art of speech making. Practice is core. Just as we think about writing, for example, the words, if they're not physically put down, we can think about it, but there's no writing. Similarly, with speech, if we don't practice, we'll never nail the art. Another very important factor, which Dr. Sibor writes about, is the art of listening. I love the story of how he met Dallas Demet at the airport in Phoenix and how he approached Dr. Sibor. I'm fascinated how every time he said his name, he mentioned the first name and the surname. I think that is wonderful. I think I'm guilty of not being a very good listener. I'll put it down to saying, oh, I'm bad with names. I can't remember a name. But how closely are we actually listening when people tell us their names? I haven't mastered the thumb, which represents anchoring. I think that's in Dr. Demet's book. In Dallas Demet's book. And so what is the good if you haven't anchored in the beginning of the talk with someone, you haven't anchored the core and the key details, then there's no good in focusing any further. It gets lost. There are so many layers to this wonderful book, as Anna Mvubu mentioned earlier on, that one actually feels you need to read it over and over again. But one of the things that rings really true with me is the faith, that it might mean different things to different people. To Dr. Sibor, it's his faith in God, it's the faith in himself, it's the faith in the people that have come to his life, and that he's recognized that there are people who are there, and he's attentive to the presence and their contributions. So there's so much more to discuss, and I see my time is up, but thanks very much for inviting me and for including me. And I wish you every success with this Leadership Visionary Leaders Book Club, and may it go from strength to strength. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Wonderful review, Anna. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of time, let's allow our next speaker to be on stage. Mpho Tukane, you are?
Okay, thank you so much. I am reviewing the speech checklist, 5 key components for an impactful and memorable speech by Dr. Sibongiseni Mgolozeli. I'm going to start off with the definition that I subscribe to of success, which says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. This is by Earl Nightingale. Because the author does acknowledge that there are many definitions to the word success, and then this is the one that I choose to use. Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow visionaries. It is great honor to be reviewing the gem of a book this evening. I am going to borrow from the book itself, page 209 of the book, from the Haka component, the abbreviations. I am using the KFC model to review this book, knowing what I want, finding out what I was getting from the book, and also changing what I did until I get what I want. So with regard to knowing what I wanted, I officially joined Toastmasters in September 2021, and it has been a great learning curve for me. But as I progressed through my learning pathways, I found that the projects became more challenging for me. That is when I sought for tools to help me in navigating my Toastmasters journey. And that is where I came across the speech checklist. Finding out what I was getting, when I started to read the book, I must admit that it met my expectations and more. Not only did it give me the 5 key components, it also motivated me as an individual, because the first part I reread and read again because it evoked something from me.
If I read this book blindly, I would deduce that it's written by a teacher. Why am I saying so? I'm saying so because the author was able to marry his own lived experiences with what he learned from the books that he read. So there is a balance because it's well researched and it is a practical book that draws from his own life experiences. In addition to the 5 key components, which I now have in my arsenal of tools, the core message or the common thread that I could pick up reminded me of the quote that I started with, which says that success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. And this is highlighted in the book where Sibu keeps emphasizing on self-discipline, taking action, and being consistent. With regard to changing what I will do to get what I want, I must say that as I started reading this book last month, and as I was going to my club meetings, I was able to apply that which I learned as a result of reading the book. Not only did I apply it for myself by going back to the speeches that I had presented and evaluating to see what is it I did wrong, what is it I didn't do. And as I reflected, I saw that I was an unconscious competent because from some of the components, some elements were showing in the speeches that I delivered before. With regard to others, as I evaluated my fellow club members, I knew what to look for. For example, with the first chapter, the first key component, the rhetoric, I could understand that if someone is to persuade me as a listener, what do I look for? But I took for granted that I could also use this effectively. And I'm appreciative of the fact that Sibu goes into much detail in explaining it. And the element of storytelling, which I personally struggled with, was also encouraged for us as speakers to keep that in mind. I give the book 5 ratings, 5 stars rating, and I recommend it to Toastmasters and to anyone who's not only wanting to improve their speech, but communication in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mpho. Ladies and gentlemen, this is wonderful. I am loving all the reviews.
Good evening, visionary readers. This is Frida Kutumela, and today I'm reviewing our book of the month, Speech Checklist, 5 Key Components of an Impactful and Memorable Speech by Dr. Sibongiseni Mgolozeli. What a wonderful book to read. What a wonderful book to have. It's such a great investment. I love it because it's an all-in-one type of book. It's not just a guide on how to give an impactful speech, but it's a biography of the author. It's a self-help book. It's an inspirational book. It's full of inspiring stories, full of inspirational quotes and Bible verses that we can all read up on and learn from. I love how the author takes us through his journey of life, where he was born, how he grew up, the challenges that he came across as he grew, and how he overcame them. I love that he's such an individual who likes to take challenges. I love that he lives his life on intention, because everything that he does, from taking a chance at being SRC president, trying to go and study overseas, taking a stance at being a comedian, starting a book club that has inspired other people to start their own, his presence on social media, leading a healthy lifestyle, and just being a leader. It's so inspiring. And this book really speaks to us, especially those who are close to him, to really be intentional about our lives and the journey that we want to take, our visions and our goals. I love that he mentions the issue of mentor. Having a mentor is so important in your life, because you want someone who's going to cheer you on, who's going to give you constructive criticism, who's going to encourage you in your career, in your life's journey. You just want someone in your corner who's going to be there for you all the time. And I was encouraged by the story of him being a mentor to Tonya, as Tonya is also one of our friends, and how she has become a great speaker as well. And on page 118, he mentions the fear of failure and how this has become a fear that really deters us from reaching our goals. And he mentions that this shouldn't be taken as something that is going to stop you from reaching your goal, but it's something that you need for your professional and personal growth. I really, really love that. And I also enjoyed chapter 3 of the book, where he mentions specifically on page 125, effective communication. Because most of the time, we do not see this as a skill. When you talk, when you communicate with other people, we don't take it as a skill. But he does advise that we need to learn how to communicate effectively, because this is a skill that can make or break relationships. So, as human beings, we are all about wanting. I want a good friend. I want a good husband. I want a good wife. I want good neighbors. I want this and this and this. But he mentions that it's very important for you to become that which you want. Be that good friend that you wish to have. Be that good wife, that good husband. Be that good neighbor. Be that good, co-worker. So I was really inspired by that. Also in chapter 1, he talks about rhetoric, and he gives examples of storytelling when you give a speech, showing emotions to your audience, giving body language, and the dress code is very important. And he says that when you give a speech, when you give a public talk, make it a journey. Don't just do it as something that you just take, or you just do it because you want to get it over and done with. It is a journey that you must walk through and do it with a passion. Also in chapter 4, he talks about HAKA, and one of the acronyms, H, which stands for humor, is very important when you give your speech, because you want to bring that humor to your crowd, make them laugh. And that is also great, because I could learn a thing or two from that, since I'm not a very, funny person, or I don't like to make jokes. But I've seen that using this one when I was giving my speech really brings your audience closer to you, and it gives them to be more attentive to you. And the power of reading. Finally, the last one, which is so close to my heart, we also learn the story of Malcolm X, how he became a great reader and a great storyteller because he read a lot when he was in prison. This book is so inspiring, and I'm so proud of you, Dr. Mgolozeli, of how you reached your goals, how you overcame your fears, and how you really worked through the pains that you went through as a child. And in the words of your mother, I would like to say to you, Ntenga Ntagadini. I hope I said it correctly. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Frida, for that. So thanks, everyone. I think we've come to the end of our meeting. Thanks for joining once again. Congratulations to all our winners. Goodbye, and have yourself a lovely evening. Cheers.